The grand halls of the Yaloon Empire's palace were filled with tension. Despite the recent celebrations, not everyone welcomed the return of Toma, the human who had saved Princess Arya years ago. Powerful leaders gathered in a large conference room, their faces serious and worried. Some whispered quietly, others spoke openly about the dangers of trusting humans. One man, Lord Varek, a senior advisor, stood and addressed the group. "We cannot ignore the risks. Humans are unpredictable. They come from a warlike world. How can we be sure that Toma's presence will not bring conflict?" Arya, seated at the head of the room, met his gaze calmly. "Toma saved my life. His courage and loyalty have already proven their worth," she said firmly. "But Princess," Lord Varek continued, "the Empire's stability is at stake. Some planets refuse to accept humans. They fear a change that might upset the delicate balance." A murmur of agreement followed. Toma listened quietly. This was the world he had left behind, the world of politics and power plays. He thought of the dusty moon, Kaldor 5, where he had lived in peace. Here, in this room, the stakes were different. The fate of many rested on decisions made in silence and shadows. Finally, Toma stood. His voice was steady, but carried the weight of experience. "I am not here to start wars or take power. I am here to help build peace. I come from a world where people had to fight for every breath, every moment of safety. I learned that true strength is in understanding and trust, not fear." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each leader. "I ask you to judge me by my actions, not by the world I come from. I ask you to see me as a man who chose to protect life, not destroy it." The room grew quiet. Some leaders nodded slowly, others looked unsure. But the princess smiled proudly. "This is why Toma is important," Arya said. "He reminds us that courage and hope can come from any place." After the meeting, Toma found himself alone in the palace garden. The soft glow of the twin moons lit the flowers and trees, creating a peaceful contrast to the storm inside. Arya joined him quietly. "You handled that well," she said softly. Toma shrugged. "It's not easy. Politics always complicate things." Arya looked at him thoughtfully. "But we need people like you, people who speak the truth." Toma smiled faintly. "Sometimes the truth is hard to hear." Meanwhile, rumors and whispers spread through the Empire's capital. Some leaders plotted to undermine the princess's trust in humans. Others questioned Toma's loyalty. In a dark room far from the palace, a shadowy figure spoke into a communication device. "We cannot. Let this human change the balance. Find a way to remove him quietly." The voice was cold and determined. Back at the palace, Arya and Toma prepared for a visit to the mining moon of Kaldor 5. The princess wanted to show the Empire where Toma had lived and how humans could live in peace with nature and technology. Toma hesitated. "Are you sure this is a good idea? Some might see it as a weakness." Arya shook her head. "It is a strength to show where we come from and where we can go." As their ship approached Kaldor 5, memories flooded Toma's mind. The dry red, rocks, the small homes, the people who had called him friend without knowing his past. The landing was quiet. Miners and townsfolk gathered to see the princess and her human guest. Arya walked with Toma through the streets, listening to stories and meeting people. One young miner named Lena approached them. "You fixed our water pump when no one else could," she said with a smile. Toma nodded. "It was the right thing to do." Arya looked around, seeing the simple but strong life the people led. "This is where hope begins," she said. "But not everyone was happy. Lord Varek's spies had followed the princess's visit and reported back. "We must act soon," the shadowy voice said again. "The human must be removed before he gains more support." Back on the ship, Arya and Toma prepared to return to the capital. The future was uncertain. The princess's words had inspired many, but danger lurked in the shadows. Toma looked at Aria. What happens next? She smiled with quiet determination. We fight for peace, together. As the stars stretched before them, the human who once hid from the world now stood at the center of a galaxy's hope. The echoes of war still whispered, but a new story was beginning, one of courage, trust, and the power to change the future. The first light of dawn spread softly over the capital of the Yulun Empire. After the long night of danger and battle, the city was calm again. The stars faded, and the twin suns rose together, casting warm colors over the palace walls. Inside the grand hall, Princess Aria stood tall, her eyes shining with hope and determination. Beside her stood Toma, the human who had saved her so many years ago, and who had now become a symbol of courage and peace across the empire. Today was a new day for the galaxy. The past weeks had been hard. The palace had faced threats from those who feared change and power slipping from their hands. But Aria and Toma had shown the strength of trust and unity. Now, leaders from all over the empire gathered once again, this time not just to talk, but to take a step forward together. Aria's voice was clear and calm as she addressed the crowd. We have faced darkness and fear. We have stood together, and we have won. But our journey is far from over. Today, we choose peace, hope, and a future where all are welcome. She turned to Toma. And today, I ask this man to stand with me, not as a stranger, but as a true leader and friend of our people. The crowd erupted in cheers. Toma felt the weight of their eyes on him. For years, he had hidden from his past, thinking himself only a simple man. But now he stood as a symbol of something much greater. He stepped forward and spoke simply, I'm no hero. I am a man who learned that the greatest strength is in standing together. We are stronger when we trust each other. I promise to stand with Princess Aria and the Empire to protect this peace. The crowd's applause grew louder. Later, Aria and Toma walked through the palace gardens, where the soft breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. Aria smiled. You have given us hope, Toma. Not just as a savior, but as a friend. Toma looked at her quietly. You saved me too, Aria. You reminded me that even in the darkest times, light can shine. They paused, watching the twin suns climb higher. This is just the beginning, Aria said. A new dawn for all of us. In the days that followed, the alliance between humans and the Yulun Empire grew stronger. Trade routes opened, cultural exchanges blossomed, and soldiers from different worlds trained side by side. Toma found himself traveling between planets, sharing stories of courage and peace. He met many people who had once feared humans, but now saw them as friends. One afternoon, on a peaceful moon called Vela, Toma stood with Aria before a crowd of children. Aria spoke gently. These children are the future. They will grow up, knowing that differences are a strength, not a reason for fear. Toma smiled as a young girl stepped forward. Sir, will you teach us how to be brave like you? Toma crouched down to her level. Bravery is not about fighting. It's about standing up for what is right, even when it is hard. The children listened closely, their eyes full of hope. But peace was not something to take for granted. Toma, new challenges would come, and dark forces might rise again. One evening, back in the palace, Aria and Toma stood on the balcony looking at the stars. We have done much, Aria said, but the galaxy is still full of unknown dangers. Toma nodded. Then we keep moving forward, together. Aria reached for his hand. Together. Their story spread across the stars. The story of a princess and a human who had faced fear, danger, and doubt, and who had chosen hope. The galaxy watched as old enemies became friends, as bridges were built where walls once stood, and through it all, Arya and Toma remained side by side, leading not with power, but with courage and kindness. As the twin suns set on the horizon, their light cast long shadows that faded into the night. The princess and the human looked ahead, ready to meet whatever future awaited them, because they knew no matter what came, hope was stronger than fear, and unity was the greatest power of all. The palace lights dimmed as night fell over the capital of the Yilun Empire, but in the shadows, plans darker than the night itself were unfolding. In a hidden chamber beneath the city, Lord Varek paced back and forth. His face was hard, his eyes cold. The news from Kaldor 5 had unsettled him. "They are growing stronger," Varek muttered. "The princess and the human are winning hearts and minds. If we do nothing, they will change everything." A group of cloaked figures listened silently. Varek's voice dropped low. "We must act, quietly, so no one suspects us until it is too late." One of the figures stepped forward. "What is your order, my lord?" Varek's eyes flashed. "Find a way to separate the princess from the human. Remove him before he becomes a threat to our power." Meanwhile, in the bright chambers of the palace, Arya and Toma met to discuss the growing tension. "I feel it," Arya said softly. "Not everyone wants us to succeed." Toma nodded. "I have faced enemies before. They will try to use fear to stop us." Arya's expression grew serious. "We cannot let fear control us." Toma smiled faintly. "Then we must be the light that pushes back the shadows." The next day, the palace held a grand event to celebrate the alliance between humans and the Yilun Empire. Leaders from many planets gathered, hoping to show support and unity. Toma stood beside Arya as she addressed the crowd. "Our strength comes from unity," she said. "Together, we can build a future where all are safe." The crowd applauded, but Toma noticed a few cold eyes watching him. After the speech, Toma was invited to meet with a group of young soldiers. They looked eager but unsure. One of them, a young woman named Mira, spoke first. "Sir, how did you find the courage to save the princess when so much was against you?" Toma smiled gently. "I didn't think about courage. I only thought about doing what was right." Mira looked inspired. "I want to be brave like you." Toma placed a hand on her shoulder. "You already are." That evening, Toma returned to his quarters to find a message waiting for him. It was simple but clear. "Trust no one. Danger is closer than you think." He frowned. Someone was warning him, but who? Arya sensed the growing danger too. She invited her closest advisors to a secret meeting. "We must be careful," she said. "There are those who want to divide us." One advisor asked, "What can we do, princess?" Arya looked determined. "We stay united. We show them that fear will not win." Days later, strange things began to happen. Toma's supplies were tampered with. His communications were interrupted. Shadowy figures followed him in the corridors. Toma knew the warnings were real. "Someone was trying to harm him or make him disappear," he told Arya. She promised to increase his protection. One night, as Toma walked through the palace gardens, he felt a sudden chill. A figure stepped out of the darkness. "Toma," a voice whispered. He turned quickly to see Mira, the young soldier from before. "I need to tell you something," she said urgently. Toma listened as Mira revealed a secret group working against the Alliance. They planned to kidnap the princess and blame humans to start a new war. Toma's heart raced. "We must stop them." Together, Toma and Mira went to Arya with the news. The princess did not hesitate. "We will protect the Empire and our people. No one will break us." She called for trusted guards and prepared the palace for what might come. The night grew dark and quiet. but danger was near. Shadows moved closer to the palace walls, waiting for the right moment. Toma stood beside Arya as the alarms finally sounded. "Intruders!" a guard shouted. The hidden enemies had come. Fierce battle erupted in the palace halls. Toma fought with strength and skill, protecting the princess and the people. Mira led soldiers to stop the attackers, while Arya directed the defense with calm authority. After a long struggle, the attackers were pushed back and captured. In the aftermath, the Empire was shaken but stronger. Arya looked at Toma with gratitude. "You saved us again." Toma smiled. "We saved each other." The princess addressed the Empire once more. "Today, we faced darkness and stood together. Let this be a lesson. When we unite, no shadow can overcome the light." The crowd cheered. As peace returned, Toma and Arya walked through the quiet palace gardens. "Thank you," Arya said softly. "For everything." Toma looked at the stars, above. "The fight is not over, but together we can face anything." Arya nodded. Together. The story of the human and the princess was no longer just a tale of the past. It was a living promise, a promise that hope and courage could change the galaxy. And so, under the twin moons, their journey continued. The grand hall of the Yaloon Empire's capital was filled with the soft murmur of voices. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, casting warm light on the faces of the many important people gathered there. Lords, generals, diplomats, and advisors sat around the large circular table, all waiting for the princess to speak. At the center stood Princess Arya. She was calm, confident, and radiant in her royal blue robes. Next to her stood Toma, the man who had once saved her life. Though he looked tired and quiet, the room's attention was on him. Arya took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice strong enough to be heard by everyone. "Years ago, during the siege of Viora Prime, I was just a child. My home was attacked and I was trapped inside the palace with no way out. Many thought I would not survive." She paused, her eyes meeting Toma's. "But one human soldier risked his life to save me." The room fell silent. Arya continued. "His name was unknown to me then. He wore no crown, carried no great weapon, but he carried me to safety. He protected me with his own body, even when his leg was badly wounded. He gave me hope when all seemed lost." She turned to Toma and spoke with warmth. "I remember how he wrapped me in his armor to shield me from the fire. I remember how his hands trembled, but he never gave up." Some listeners' eyes widened. Others leaned forward, eager to hear more. Arya's voice softened. He did not want to be a hero. He only wanted to live in peace. But his courage changed everything. Because of him, a war ended and a future began. She took a small box from her pocket and opened it slowly. Inside was a simple medal, an emblem of the Yaloon Empire, given only to the bravest. "I give this to him," Arya said, placing the medal gently in Toma's hands. "Not just to thank him, but to remind us all that courage can come from anyone, no matter where they come from." Toma looked down at the medal. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. He whispered, "I did what I had to do." "I'm no hero." Arya shook her head. "You are more than you know." The crowd around them broke into applause. Whispers spread quickly. "A human soldier honored by the princess. The war's forgotten hero. A symbol of hope for all." One elderly general stepped forward. "Princess, this is a great moment for the Empire, but there are those who fear humans. Some say they are reckless and dangerous." Arya faced the general without hesitation. "This man proves otherwise. He shows what humanity truly is." The general bowed slightly, his face thoughtful. Later, in a private room, Arya and Toma sat together, away from the crowds. "Why did you hide all these years?" Arya asked gently. Toma sighed. I was tired. The war took more than just my body. It took my peace. I thought hiding would protect me from the past. Arya nodded. But the past does not leave us alone. It follows us. Toma looked at her. I never thought I'd see you again. Neither did I, she said with a small smile. But here we are. Arya reached out and touched his hand. You saved more than just my life, Toma. You saved the hope of a people. You gave us a reason to believe in each other. Toma smiled softly. Maybe hope is the strongest weapon we have. They sat quietly, sharing a moment of peace before the challenges ahead. Outside the palace, news of the ceremony spread across the empire and beyond. Humans and aliens alike celebrated. Some sent messages of respect and friendship. Others watched, warily. But one thing was clear. The story of the human who saved a princess was changing the galaxy's view of humanity. Days later, a gathering of the Empire's leaders took place. The topic was the future of the alliance between humans and Yulun. Arya stood before the group with Toma by her side. We have a choice, she said, to fear each other or to build a future together. Toma's courage reminds us that our differences make us stronger. A senator spoke up. Princess, what would you have us do? Arya smiled. We begin by welcoming humanity as allies, friends, and equals, and we honor those who choose peace. The room erupted in applause. That night, as the stars shone bright, above the palace, Toma looked up at the sky. For the first time in a long time, he felt at home. He had come out of the shadows. He had faced his past, and he was ready for what the future held. The silver ship sliced quietly through space, stars flickering past the windows like tiny diamonds. Inside, Princess Arya sat across from Toma. The hum of the ship's engines filled the room, but the silence between them was heavier than any sound. Toma looked out the window, his mind distant. After all these years, he was finally face to face with the princess he had saved. Yet he felt like a ghost, an old memory that should have stayed buried. Arya studied him carefully. You've changed, she said softly. Toma gave a tired smile. Not much, just older and slower, she nodded. You saved me once. Now, I want to learn who you really are. Toma looked away. I'm just a man who did what he had to do. Arya shook her head. No. You were more than that. You risked everything for someone you barely knew. The ship soon arrived at Xylar Station, a busy spaceport on the edge of the Yulun Empire. The station buzzed with merchants, travelers, and soldiers. But today, the air was charged with curiosity. News had spread quickly. The princess had returned with the human who saved her. Arya led Toma through the crowd. People stopped to stare, whispering among themselves. Some bowed to the princess. Others glanced at Toma with questions. Toma kept his head down. He did not want attention. But the whispers followed him everywhere. Inside the station's large meeting hall, Arya called for silence. I want to introduce someone very important, she said, her voice strong and clear. The crowd turned toward Toma. He stepped forward, slowly, unsure of what to expect. Arya spoke again. This man is the human who saved my life during the siege of Viora Prime. For years he was a ghost, someone I searched for but could not find. Today, I have found him. There was a mix of shock and admiration, the room filled with quiet murmurs. Toma looked at the faces before him, some filled with respect, others with disbelief. After the meeting, Toma tried to slip away, but a young officer approached him. Sir, your actions are legendary. The Empire owes you much. Toma shook his head. I don't want legends. I just want peace. The officer smiled. Sometimes peace comes from stories like yours. Later, Arya and Toma walked through the station's garden, a small green. Space filled with glowing plants and soft lights. Arya stopped and looked at him. "Why did you disappear after the rescue? Why not return with me?" Toma sighed. "I was broken. My body hurt. My mind was full of war. I wanted to forget. I wanted to be just a man again." Arya placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to be alone anymore." Suddenly, a loud alarm sounded. Red lights flashed. "Intruders!" a voice called out. The crowd gasped and scattered as armed soldiers rushed in. Toma instinctively moved in front of Arya, ready to protect her. The intruders were a small group of masked figures. They moved quickly, aiming to capture the princess. Toma fought with the strength of a man who had survived many battles. His movements were precise, despite the years. He pushed the attackers back, protecting Arya. The soldiers arrived just in time to help. The intruders fled. After the attack, Arya looked at Toma with new respect. "You saved me again," she said. Toma smiled tiredly. Old habits. The event changed something in the people around them. No longer was Toma just a ghost story. He was real. He was strong. That night in her private quarters, Arya spoke with her advisors. "We must honor this man," she said. "Not only for what he did in the past, but for what he represents now." One advisor frowned. "Princess, some fear what this means. Humans have been seen as unpredictable." Arya stood firm. "This man is different. He is the bridge between our peoples." Meanwhile, Toma lay awake in his room, thinking about the future. The princess believed in him. The empire needed hope. He whispered to himself, "Maybe it's time to stop hiding." The next morning, Toma was invited to speak before a group of leaders from different planets. They came to hear the story of the human who saved a princess and helped bring peace. Standing before them, Toma felt nervous. But when he began to speak, his words were simple and true. "I am no hero," he said. "I am just a man who chose to help. We all have that choice, to stand up or to walk away. That choice is what makes us strong." The room fell silent. Arya stood at the back, watching with pride. As the meeting ended, Arya approached Toma. "You spoke well. You are not just my savior. You are a symbol of hope." Toma looked at her, feeling something he had not felt in years. Purpose. "Thank you, Arya," he said softly. She smiled. "This is only the beginning." The galaxy was watching now. A human and a princess, united by courage and kindness, standing together against fear. And the story of the ghost, who saved a princess, was becoming something much greater. Far away from the bright lights of the great star cities and the busy spaceports, there was a small, dusty moon called Kaldor 5. It was not a place for heroes or kings. The surface was covered in red rocks and dry sand, and the only buildings were old mining stations and small homes made of metal sheets. Here lived a man named Toma. He did not wear shining armor or command fleets. He wore simple clothes, and his hands were rough from fixing machines and digging in the rocky soil. Toma had changed a lot since the day he saved Princess Arya. The young soldier who once ran through battlefields was now a quiet man who kept to himself. His hair was longer and grayer at the edges, and a scar ran down his left cheek. He walked slowly, his left leg still weak from the old injury. No one on Kaldor 5 knew who he really was. The people who lived there called him the mechanic. They came to him when their machines broke. He fixed everything, from small water pumps to mining drills. Toma did not ask questions. He never talked about the past. Most days, Toma sat outside his small workshop, watching the twin suns set behind the mountains. He thought often about the past, but he never spoke about it. He had made a choice long ago, to disappear and live a simple life. The war was over. His job was done. But fate was about to change. One evening, as the orange sky melted into darkness, a strange sound echoed across the mining station. A ship, a sleek silver vessel with sharp lines and glowing blue lights, landed quietly near the edge of the settlement. It was unlike any ship that normally came to Caldor 5. The miners stopped their work and stared. From the ship stepped a group of soldiers in clean uniforms, their faces serious. At their front walked a woman wearing a royal blue cloak with a silver star, Princess Aria herself. She looked different from the young girl Toma had saved. She was taller, stronger, with bright eyes full of purpose. Her hair was pulled back, and her voice was calm but firm as she spoke to the station leader. "We are looking for a man," Aria said. "A human. He helped me years ago." The leader frowned. "Many humans have passed through here. What is his name?" Aria shook her head. "We do not know his name." Toma heard the news through the grapevine. People whispered in the market and the mining halls. "The princess is here, searching for the human who saved her." At first, Toma felt nothing. He was just a mechanic. But then a small hope grew inside him. Could it be possible? Could the princess have come for him after all these years? He did not want to meet her. He feared the past, the fame, the attention, but he could not stop himself from watching. From a distance, Toma saw her move through the small settlement. She asked questions, spoke to miners, and studied the faces around her. She carried herself like a leader, but her eyes searched for something more. One day, Toma was repairing a broken water pump at the edge of the station when a rough voice interrupted him. "You, the human with the bad leg," called a young miner named Jorik. Toma looked up. "You don't look like much. Why don't you tell us who you really are? Maybe you were a soldier once?" Toma wiped his hands. "I'm just a mechanic. That's all," Jorik laughed. "Maybe you're hiding something. Maybe you're the hero the princess is looking for." Toma ignored him and returned to his work, but Jorik was persistent. He kept talking, pushing Toma's patience. Then, suddenly, Jorik grabbed a wrench and swung it carelessly toward Toma. Before anyone could react, Toma moved fast. He caught the wrench with one hand and held Jorik by the wrist with the other. "Enough," Toma said quietly. "You don't want to do this." Jorik struggled but stopped. "Why do you care?" Toma released him and stood tall despite the limp in his leg. "Because some things are better left alone," he said. The miners around them watched in silence. That night, Toma sat alone, thinking about the past and the princess. He remembered the battle, the fear, the running through burning halls. He remembered holding Aria close, protecting her with his own body. Suddenly there was a soft knock on his door. He opened it slowly. There stood Aria, dressed simply in a traveler's cloak. "May I come in?" she asked softly. Toma nodded. They sat together in the small room. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Aria said, "I found you." Toma looked at her with surprise. "You don't have to hide anymore," she said. "I want to thank you for saving my life." Toma shook his head. "I did what anyone would have done." "No," Aria said firmly. "No one else did. Not like you." They talked for hours. Aria told him about the Empire, the changes, and the new dangers. She said she wanted to invite him to the royal court, not as a soldier, but as a friend, as a symbol of peace between humans and Yulune. Toma was quiet. "I don't want to be a hero," he said. "I want to live a simple life." Aria smiled gently. "I understand. But sometimes the past finds us whether we want it or not." The next day, news of Aria's visit spread through Caldor 5 like wildfire. The miners and traders whispered, "The princess is here to find the man who saved her." Some people cheered. Others watched carefully, unsure if this would bring trouble. Toma prepared to leave. He packed only what he needed: For the first time in years, he allowed himself to hope. Arya stood by his side. "Where will we go?" Toma asked. "To the stars," she said. "And maybe this time we can change the galaxy together." As the ship lifted off the dusty surface of Caldor 5, Toma looked down at the small moon fading below them. He felt something new, a spark of courage. For the first time in a long time, he was ready to face the future. Long ago, in a part of the galaxy where stars shine blue and gold, a terrible war was happening. Two powerful space empires, the Yaloon Empire and the Rethan Order, were fighting for control of the outer star systems. Planets were burning, ships were crashing, and innocent lives were caught in the middle. In the middle of this war was a small green planet called Veora Prime. It was not famous, but it had something very important. The young Princess Arya of the Yaloon Empire was hiding there. She was only 12 at the time. Her people had sent her to Veora to keep her safe from the Rythan forces. But the enemy found out, and they sent ships to attack. No one expected the Rythan Order to strike so fast, and soon the peaceful planet became a battlefield. The palace where Arya was hiding shook with explosions. Soldiers rushed through the halls, trying to fight back. Arya stayed quiet in a small room under the palace, holding her breath. She could hear shouting and blasts above her. She had never felt so afraid. Then everything went silent. She waited, and then, boom! The door to her hiding room exploded open. She covered her face, expecting the worst. But instead of a Rythan soldier, she saw something else. It was a human. His armor was scratched and smoking, and one of his arms was bleeding. He had short, dark hair and a face covered in dust and sweat. His name was Toma, a human soldier from a small unit sent to help defend the planet. No one expected humans to fight here, but Toma had gone far beyond his orders. He looked at Arya and said simply, "We don't have much time." Arya stared at him. "You're not Yaloon." "No," he said, kneeling to her level. "But I'm here to help. Can you walk?" She nodded slowly. He took off part of his armor, his chest plate, and placed it over her small frame. "Stay close," he said, "no matter what." They ran through smoke-filled halls and broken stairways. The palace was falling apart, and Rythan drones flew overhead. Toma carried Arya when she got tired, never stopping, even when lasers flew past them. His leg was hurt, but he didn't complain. At one point, a drone flew right at them. Toma jumped in front of Arya, took the hit, and kept going. He fired back with his small blaster and led her into the forest beyond the city. They hid in the trees for 3 days. Arya was cold and scared, but Toma kept her safe. He gave her food from his pack, told her stories to keep her calm, and watched the skies every night for a signal. On the 3rd night, he saw it, a Yaloon rescue ship. Using a broken comlink, he sent a signal, and the ship landed. The soldiers rushed out, shocked to see the young human carrying their princess. "Where are the others?" they asked. Toma shook his head. "Didn't make it." Arya turned to him. "You're coming with us?" He smiled softly. "No. They'll look for you. If I'm with you, they might follow. Go. Be safe." Before she could say more, he disappeared into the trees. That was the last time she saw him. News of the rescue spread quickly. The Yaloon were surprised. They had never trusted humans much. Humans were seen as too young, too wild, too stubborn. But one human had done what entire fleets could not. He had saved their future queen. The war ended months later with a peace agreement. The Rythan Order fell back, and the Yaloon Empire stood strong. Princess Arya returned home safely, and her people celebrated her return. But she never forgot the human soldier. She asked her advisors many times, "Who was he?" They didn't know. His name was not on any record. No one saw him again. Some said he died in the forest. Others believed he returned to his home planet. A few even whispered that he was never real, that the girl had imagined him. But Arya knew the truth. He was real, and he had saved her life. Years passed. She grew up, trained in leadership and prepared to become empress. But deep inside, a quiet promise remained. One day, I will find him, and I will thank him. Now, 10 years later, she had become a strong and wise young leader. The galaxy was changing again. New threats were rising, and alliances were becoming weak, and somewhere out in the stars, a man named Toma lived a quiet life, not knowing that the past was about to return, because the princess was coming, and this time, she was the one looking for him.